So, I was watching Married at First Sight. I was up to season 18, and this couple caught my attention. They stood out to me not just because things fell apart for them, but because of the wise statements that the man made and how they were totally misconstrued. So, the man's name is Akechi, and I don't know, I might be his only one single fan based on the way they portrayed this guy on the show. He got married at first sight to this lady, and her name was She seemed to be a lovely lady and everything. And one good thing about her was the fact that she was good at communicating about her problems. And she was communicating even with her face here. You can see her facial nonverbal communication was excellent. They seemed to be a good match intellectually, but they had different value systems, and that it didn't work for them. This conversation that I'm talking about with the therapist said a whole lot. Well, this show is supposed to be an accelerated matchmaking show that marries two strangers right away, and then they have a few weeks to decide if they want to stay married based on what they experience. That's really hard, and we have to give them credit because they're on a reality show with cameras in their faces while they're doing what most of us struggle to do, which is two people in privacy, if you think about it. So kudos to them. I would think someone would have to have lots of dating experience and make like no mistakes and have expertise with observation in order to succeed at something like this, which is why I see most of the couples on this show fail. I think most of them are betting on luck or just accept that there is no way to truly understand about the other person under the conditions that they're under, so they just go along with it. Anyway, I feel so bad for Akechi because he was basically vilified for doing what was right. He was shown as like almost like a crazy man, but he was completely right and could have succeeded where many people fail. See how many people are struggling with relationships and these types of things, and he seemed like he had awareness. He maybe had experiences in his life that helped him to understand that he needed to take things seriously and that he needed to be careful and that he needed to be observant. But they made it look wrong. Things did not work well for him because he was not good with communication, okay? That was like his main flaw was communication. Everything else he was saying was correct, but the way he said it, the way he communicated was very weak. Right off the bat in this meeting, I could see that he was not prepared to explain some deeper level things about the quality of connection he expected to have with someone that he had to choose to stay married to. He explained his concern, though with very brief statements. Then he was passive aggressive, and then as the show progressed, not in this meeting necessarily, but as the show progressed, he began to run away. So the woman who had great communication skills, started the conversation focused on questions like, what do you want out of marriage and what do you want out of a wife? It would have been great if he had used these questions to introduce the concept of compatibility that is beyond surface level. I think that is what he really wants out of a wife, but he didn't give her that direct, clear answer. Instead, he first tried to tiptoe around his issue, which is very valid, by the way, and then he tried to avoid discussing it altogether. So my main question is, why did he feel like his concern should not be publicly discussed? Perhaps he's just a shy guy. So he said, I promised that I wouldn't use anything that we said vulnerability-wise against her. So in this moment, I'm not going to do that. Even though this is a conversation where he's supposed to be bringing up the issues that are affecting him. Right? So he was looking for permission from the woman to discuss what was bothering him, which is like, no. Why didn't he just say what he had to say? And if you see what happened later in the show, she completely exposes his vulnerabilities and discusses all her concerns with no consideration of how he felt about it. But at this point, which was like nearer to the beginning, he was being very nice. Too nice at this meeting. With her permission, he finally revealed they were not getting along because she had asked him if he wanted her, and he said, I don't want to be physically connected with you until I know that this is what it is. or who we are or what we are. Yeah, it would have been great if he had said right here what it is that he is looking for. I think the compatibility factors that he was looking for are what were holding him back. But he didn't say that. So he went on to say, I don't want to initiate anything or go anywhere unless we're on a different level of understanding in terms of marriage. Excellent, excellent, excellent way to handle this. Very mature. And I thought, good point. Go on to explain those levels, Akechi. But no, he did not explain in depth. Instead, he did quickly say, yes, we were married, but I want to mentally know you, physically know you completely before we go there. Again, excellent, very responsible, but he needed to explain a lot more. I thought he should even maybe mention, or maybe he left out, I would like to also spiritually know about you too in his comment, because he should want to know what her demons were. But that's a whole nother story. He should have explained each one of these with examples of what it means to mentally know someone. That is why communication is so important. But did he? No, I wish he would have. He could have said, it's important that I understand your mindset concerning certain things going on in society currently. I want to discuss ethics and principles that you hold. I want to know the health challenges that not only you, but your siblings and previous generations of your family faced. Do they have certain diseases, disabilities, or mental illnesses running in her family? Because this activity leads to children which have an impact on his future generations as well, or which could have an impact on his future generations as well. He could have said something like, I want to know what you look like without a wig and eyelash extensions when you're able to physically be yourself and the cameras aren't rolling. All of these would be very valid points that he could have brought up. And he started to make them, but he kept it very brief. And I feel like both the therapist and MM did not understand what he was talking about. They just looked at him like, what do you mean? This was a great opportunity for him to lead the conversation with MM and the therapist into a much less superficial direction. I would have liked to see him talk about real issues like how he wants to remain monogamous and that he's not interested in playing the kind of games that people play, which leave people brokenhearted and traumatized because eventually one person suddenly realizes the quality of the connection can't sustain their interests and then goes looking for what is missing in many other places. That's called bitter divorce for infidelity 10 years later, if we don't investigate these kinds of things. But instead what he did is he left her to just keep trying for the physical connection. He complained that when they were at home, she would say things like, you're my husband. And he would respond, and I don't know you. And then he called her aggressive, which sounded insulting and confusing to her, I guess, because in the beginning, she then brought up to the therapist that he placed her hand on his private area during the honeymoon, and that is not really supposed to be like a real honeymoon, and because they were strangers. So on his part, this would have been an excellent time to either on camera or privately discuss the internal struggle that he might have been facing. I'm just reading into this. He might have been facing some sort of internal struggle to defy social expectations and norms that do not reflect his values or beliefs, and why he's having that struggle. And again, it would probably have been really helpful for MM if he told her the why part, like what has he seen that caused him to have this different way of thinking, or what did he experience, or what is his culture. He referenced that, hey, I'm from the South, I don't do this, right? So she might not have shared his culture, and it could have probably brought them closer together if he had actually explained the why to his internal struggle. But what we're seeing here instead were just mixed signals. And these mixed signals indicate internal conflict. He probably felt like, I want this, but then I don't. And everybody can relate to that. It sounds like he decided to stand on the I don't want side of this. And then he hit the brakes hard. He started going forward, and then he was like, no, I don't want to do this. And then it was like, nope, we're not going to do anything. And so the poor girl got whiplash in the stopping because she was going straight ahead with speed. Remember, this is a speed marriage after all. So she took off flying. And he said, as she sped forward without much clear communication, she's running toward me, she's kissing me, she's grabbing me, as a problem with MM's behavior. That was one of his complaints. And MM's behavior was showing that she clearly didn't understand the boundaries or the reason why there were boundaries in the first place. By the end of the show, as things unraveled further and further, MM became downright resentful because of this. Just, I said, she is very expressive with her facial, with her face. Her facial expressions are top notch. She became very resentful by the end of the season because she never received in-depth conversation that she should have. What a shame, because that kind of conversation could have brought them closer together than all the other couples on the show. Imagine if they had like some sort of really deep conversation about his culture and his ideas that don't match the norm. But basically they concluded they needed to get to know each other on another level in this meeting. And they needed time. But obviously, the levels were never discussed and things went downhill. So, I would say he did a good job. I think more than many people who go on the show. But as I said, she expresses herself way clearer, and he was like kind of blocked out. Now, her face says, I'm thinking you're strange, and I'm disgusted. I can't believe this. The lesson for us, though, from watching this is communication is key, especially if you're going to be doing the correct thing. You basically need to turn into an educator or something. You need to be a leader to the other person. You definitely need to lead the other person, and in his case, since he was on this show, he would have had to be a leader to even groups of people. He would have had to explain himself to the therapist and to maybe the other participants on the show. Now, he made a good try, especially under the circumstances. Who knows? Maybe he had stage fright or was nervous, so he couldn't say all that he would usually say. And I think that MM and even the therapist would have benefited from the interesting conversation that they could have had. So I'm going to stop minding other people's business right here. And once again, that was me giving my 2 cents, trying to make sense out of nonsense. And I will talk to you later. Bye.